Welcome back, guys, to Apollo Justice, A's attorney, where we're now in court with the trial of Drew Misham for the murder of her father, artist Drew Misham. Of course, we know he's not just an artist after all, but possibly a forger. Well, possibly, definitely, considering we've examined the contents of those paintings, what hides behind the paint. We are now interviewing Mr. Brushel, the interviewer, who was there at the time of the death. With that said, we are talking about the coffee of which the stars fall. Those spasms, that was definitely death by poison, he says, but that's not exactly a very good statement for us to move on from what we know. We know that he died from poison. Everything points at dying from poison. This is not a good statement for us to do anything with. You say it was definitely death by poison. How can you be so sure? Hey look, I'm a journalist, I've seen a lot of things, and I've had more than my share of experiences with so-called poisonings. Man eats fishy fish, goes bye-bye. End quote. Food poisoning doesn't count. Should I get him to talk about something else? Right, so we want him to speak about something else, really. We need a statement fished from it. Let's ask about the stars coffee, then. You say Mr. Misham had the coffee too, but did you actually see him drink the coffee? Of course! He who sees it wins, but he who says it wins bigger. End quote, really. I live in a man sees dog eat dog and writes about it world. Yet? I guess I can't say I saw him drink it, really. He had one so-called sip, if that. Man puts lips to mug, drinks, end quote. That poison is quite virulent, I hear. My stomach did a so-called somersault, since I gulped down that coffee without so much as a second glance at it. Wait, maybe something's there, some kind of so-called trick. Anyone want to venture a guess for the record? Does this guy have a pause button? Well, Mr. Justice, did you find that testimony valuable? I guess we'll find out what statement came from it. The victim drank his coffee, then immediately fell over? Oh, yes. You can go to press for that one. Your Honor, this is a vital piece of information. Please add it to the testimony. Very well. The witness will add this to his testimony. Vital, righto. He had one sip, if that. The next moment, he was on the floor. Right, we know this isn't true. So that's good. We know this isn't true because Atroquinine kills in 15 minutes. So what are we producing as a reply or retort to that? Trace of the slow-acting deadly poison Atroquinine were found on the rim. He didn't really drink it, he put his lips to it. He had one sip, if that, putting doubt on if he drank anything at all. Do we just present this coffee mug? I mean, we could probably produce that, maybe? Death by Atroquinine poisoning? There's Atroquinine here. Atroquinine. Well, let's present the topic of conversation. Basically, we're just going to say that Atroquinine poisoning takes 15 minutes to work. That makes sense, right? Objection! Fine. You know what I have a problem with? A particular property of the poison used. Atroquinine. Oh, Prosecutor Gavin was quite clear about the poison. A lethal dosage of 0.002 milligrams paralyzes the central nervous system. If you drank that, even you, Mr. Justice, would be reduced to a quivering pile. Why are you using me as an example? Unfortunately, we weren't told everything. There was a vital omission in Prosecutor Gavin's information. He's waiting, isn't he? An omission! Atroquinine is as virulent as he says, but death doesn't come upon ingestion. Not immediately. That's because Atroquinine is slow-acting. Slow-acting? What? According to one forensic scientist... Well, she's not really. It's one of the most virulent poisons. It is absorbed into the body astonishingly slowly. It takes at least 15 minutes from the time of ingestion for adverse effects to show. If we suppose that the moment Mr. Misham sipped the coffee was when he sealed his fate, and he would still have had time left to enjoy his last cup of joe. God, he's Finn. Order! What's the meaning of this? If what the defense says is correct, why, that contradicts the entire testimony we just heard. Well, Mr. Brushel, anything to say on the record? Slow acting. It was virulent, alright. Even then, it had already begun digging its claws into the journalist. He's working on his scoop. Objection! Objection! It's Brushel, yeah? Herr Brushel. Let's take a trip down memory lane. Huh? Did the victim really die the instant he took a sip? Think it over. This is vital. You know what I think? I think that was a not so subliminal suggestion. End quote. I admit, it does cause a problem if he died when you say he died. I would be forced to say auf Wiedersehen to my simple case. And you would be forced to say farewell to your article. Come again? You can't write a story based on conjecture, can you? And as the case drags on, other reporters will pick up the scent. And you'll be forced to kiss your exclusive scoop goodbye. This isn't exactly, right, what he's saying here. Is this coercion of some form? Scoop! Scoop! Just put those here then. Oh no, he's screwing his glasses. The animation cutting in the middle of that was a bit weird. Also, that's weird to do that to your glasses, man. That's just really weird. Look, wait, just wait a second. Just 1 second. We're waiting, out with it. I can just record a so-called important detail. A revival of recollection, end quote. A story survival, end quote. Attorney utterly confused, end quote. Actually, I did notice something when I visited the studio. I'd heard of poison that takes a sweet time, see? But not what I've been saying for the last few minutes, apparently. Mr. Brushel, are you saying you noticed something that explains what happened? You bet I am. The antidote for a poisonous contradiction. End quote, you might say. Or, I still have no idea what you're talking about. End quote, I might say. I figured it out, but only after an in-depth interview. See, thanks to my journalism skills, I know who poisoned that coffee. Order, order, order! As far as I can tell, the witness is standing by his testimony. And Mr. Misham died the instant after he drank. Of course I'm standing by my testimony, and my dream of exclusive rights to this story. Ach, I suppose it was too much to hope for. What was? Of course he wouldn't choose a simple case, not him. Him? Phoenix Wright. Who else? Achtung, Herr Brushel. Report for us if you would. What is it that you noticed? This court is a critical trial of the juris system. I'm afraid no room for doubt is permissible. You will testify to the court about what you noticed. Well, what did Brushel notice? When I arrived at the studio, Mr. Misham was at his desk. He seemed to be writing a letter, but he quickly sealed the envelope. I thought nothing of it at the time, of course. Now that I think about it, what if he was writing a suicide note? Really? A suicide note? Yes, he had this look on his face. Man's face inscrutable as a quadratic equation, end quote. Suicide? Poor Mr. Misham. That means Vera's innocent. Would someone commit suicide in the middle of an interview? Oh. Very well. You may begin your cross-examination. Right, what did Brushel notice? Well, rubbish by the sound of it. When I arrived at the studio, Mr. Misham was at his desk. But we're getting onto this letter, or the envelope that we so saw. Was there anyone at the studio other than Mr. Misham? Well, his daughter Vera, of course. Was anyone besides Mr. Misham and Vera present? Not a single one. Not a cat, not a rat, not even a mouse. All are quiet in this long, dark house. The only person who didn't belong to that studio there was you, wasn't it, Mr. Brushel? I know what you're doing, I know your game. Attorney uses classic Ramsden phenomenon ploy, end quote. If you intend to suggest this reporter is a suspect, I'm sure you also intend to present evidence supporting that assertion, correct? In the meantime, let's move along, shall we? He seemed to be writing a letter, but he quickly sealed the envelope. So he put the letter away when he saw you? Early reporter gets worm, end quote. That's my secret! I'm not sure I follow. It's the night of the interview. I arrive 15 minutes ahead of schedule. The handle turns, the door opens, and I barge in! Are you sure that's okay to do? I mean, isn't that unlawful entry, really? Mr. Misham sure seemed to think so. You should have seen him. He crammed his letter into that yellow envelope as fast as he could. I know a secret when I spot one, and that was one. It does seem significant. Well, Mr. Justice? I wonder. It does have the ring of something important. Add to testimony or no need? Let's add it. The defense finds this testimony vital, Your Honor. Very well. Please add it to the testimony then. Hey, why not? My account comes free of charge. It was a yellow envelope. I heard it was left at the crime scene. Well, we know this is wrong. And you saw him seal this yellow envelope with the letter? Hey, don't look at me like that. I saw what I saw. Apollo, you think this might be... a big break, yeah. What I need is to show some decisive evidence now. I thought nothing on at the time, of course. Why not? Now you think about it, what if he was writing a suicide note? I don't think it's a suicide note. But what we're presenting is the red envelope. Objection! As it just so happens, there was a single letter in a desk drawer at the scene. In a red envelope. Wow! Whoa! What'd you do to yourself? Prosecutor Gavin. Yes? Was a yellow envelope found at the scene of the crime? Unfortunately, no. But hair forehead. It's easier to mistake the color of an envelope. I guess. But not this envelope. You see, it was postmarked already, 7 years ago. Well, Mr. Brushel. I can explain that. Drew Wright, he wanted to get that letter in an envelope. Pronto! Get it out of sight of my beady eyes, right? So we grabbed the nearest envelope and crammed away. And what about the whole red and yellow envelope contradiction, chump? Well, Mr. Justice, have you anything to say to the witness's claim? That night, the victim put a letter he had been writing in a red envelope. It's possible or it's impossible? I'd say it's impossible. It's possible? It's possible? No, because it's postmarked ages back. I don't know. Yeah, it's gotta be. For our kind of thing to go along. That's impossible. Ah, I like your expression. So full of confidence. It's simple, really. As it just so happens, the defense team investigated the contents of this envelope. With the assistance of a forensic scientist. We know that it's not a letter from just now. What? Note that this letter is addressed to Drew Misham. No? Why would he address a letter to himself? Well, you can do. Let alone send a suicide note to himself. Well, that's, again, maybe. I mean, you can send letters to yourself. And if you want suicide to get there later than that time, then yeah. Also, if the suicide note doesn't that clear up Vera Misham? But of course, that's not what's happened in this case. We know that. I've been scooped! Order, order, order! Mr. Brushel, can you explain this to the court? Oh, my. How could I have forgotten? I suppose this happens to the best of us. Reporter gets old, forgets a lot. Ends quote. I'm still waiting for an explanation, Mr. Brushel. Well, that's the thing, see? After he puts his letter in that envelope, Mr. Misham sat there searching his desk drawer for something. We haven't heard this music in a bit. His desk drawer? Yes, a stamp. A so-called postage stamp. End quote. A stamp? Whatever for? Well, to mail his letter, what else? And then, why yes, I think I saw him put it in his letterbox. Yes, it was a yellow envelope. And he put it in that box. Well, apparently this yellow letter has nothing to do with the... Oh, well, how I wish it did. Just think if that were a suicide note, what a story. Star writes suicide note in front of reporter. Fools. End quote. As I was saying, that has nothing to do with this case. That said... Yes, Your Honor? It makes me wonder about the contents of that red envelope. Well, we've shown it to you now. It's just jammed to the music in the meantime. 100,000 is quite a good deal of money. So this was from 7 years ago, yeah? So, am I finished? Am I finished here? I was thinking of, going home to start writing. Wait, are you just sniffing out a scoop and so you want to start writing because you heard something good? Or are you trying to get away? I hate to say what should be pretty obvious to anyone. But when you catch the scent of a story, you make that, rather unique face. Come on! Attorney has active imagination, little else. End quote. Even I noticed something and my eyes aren't what they used to be. I'm starting to understand what all this perceiving stuff is about. Judge has active imagination. End quote. Please continue with your testimony. Tell us about the scent of a story. Hey, I'm the one asking the questions here. Usually. So have I told the judge I'm perceiving things? I'm confused. Actually, it took a bit of work to get a thumbs up on the interview. Reporter leverages story gets his interview, end quote. The story concerned a certain case from 7 years ago. That red envelope probably had something to do with it. Say what you will, but Drew's talent was without compare. Gotta speak fast, you know. The text goes fast for a reason. So you threatened to go to press with this story? That's how you got your interview? Blackmail? Well, yes. I mean, no. It wasn't exactly black. I mean, I'm not... Something wrong, Mr. Brushel? Look. This is my story, my tidbit. Journalist info is livelihood, end quote. I see. While you have me chatting away in here, what's going on out there? What if some Wally Wordsworth or Sally Scooper gets wind of my story? They could be going to press while I'm going to waste. The court feels your pain, Mr. Brushel. Mr. Justice, let's pick up the pace. A certain case, 7 years ago. Wait. 7 years ago? Right. Actually, it took a bit of work to get a thumbs up on the interview. Oh, wait. I saw that right. The victim, Drew Misham, had an aversion to reporters. Boy, I guess. Not even my considerable charms did much for him. Until finally I got my thumbs up, that is. Maybe you can elaborate on that a bit for us? Oh, I did notice it. We have gold. We're looking for something here. Reporter leverages story gets his interview, end quote. Exactly what sort of story was this? Oh, a little one, like I said. Nothing more, nothing less. Nothing in between. End quote. I might have suggested I had a lead on this particular story, but I didn't threaten or cajole or nothing honest. So a suggestion was enough to get an interview? Mr. Misham must have really wanted to keep it under wraps. The story concerned a certain case from 7 years ago. A certain case, 7 years ago? Tell us, what case? Let me state one thing, Mr. Attorney, and you can quote me on this. I can't talk about that case. Why not? It's about journalistic pride and staunchness and credibility and connections. Journalist reveals sources only over his dead body. End quote. So what'll it be? Gonna strangle me? Dead men don't tell tales, Mr. Attorney. He sounds pretty determined not to talk. Our chances of breaking his will aren't looking good. That's because we gotta perceive something, you know. But where? There? Somewhere? Usually, mind you, it does give us a hint when we reach the end of a testimony string. So why don't we just go and get that? That red envelope probably has something to do with it. On the one hand, we have your story, and on the other, this letter. What makes you think the two are related? Oh, I was just saying it's possible. Call it reporter's intuition, end quote. Hey, I see a lot of things. You gonna pick apart all of them? Be my guest. All of them? No, just the incredibly suspicious ones. I see. Anything else to add about Mr. Misham? Say what you will, but Drew's talent was without compare. Just how amazing was Mr. Misham's talent? Huh? Oh, wee boy. I mean, hey, he's a star man, a star. The flow of his brush is like a great undulating river across the canvas. Artist paints light up studio like sun. End quote. This guy is full of wacky gestures. But that one just now was wackier than usual. He looks kind of nervous to me, Apollo. Definitely. I'm sensing something different than before here. Maybe it's time to bring out you-know-what. That testimony left a bad taste in my mouth. It all makes sense. See, that's a little bit of a cut statement. We passed the testimony bit. This is the end of testimony statement. So it's on that fifth bit by the sound of it. It all makes sense. Nothing jumps out as ridiculous. I wonder what this story he's talking about is. It must have been good to get an interview with a famous recluse like that. Something powerful enough to drag Drew Misham out of hiding? I wonder. Maybe it's something to do with Mr. Misham's art. In fact, it's just such a personal statement to have on him that we're gonna have to try it here. So what am I looking for? Oh, he's keeping that there. Well, he doesn't move his hand or his face when he's in that statement. So I think I know what it is, based on just sweeping back and forth. Oh god! He gets instant case of the sweats. A bit of sweeping over his chest worked quite well. It was weird that his animation with his toothbrush stopped, and it was more or less trying to say, like, this is not the thing. When his face locked up in a position. Gotcha! Gotcha! Indeed. Sweat much, Mr. Brushel? Yeah, well, a man can't help his glands, you know? It's more than that. When Mr. Misham's talent was mentioned, you suddenly began to sweat buckets. Nah! You're hiding something about his talent. What? That's ridiculous! Evidence time. Let's show where Mr. Misham's true talent lay. It just so happens I have evidence showing the talent mentioned in that letter. I do? I guess this is the forgeries. Am I presenting the one that's obviously, that or the hidden painting? I don't know. Am I presenting the one with the underneath one, or the one that was hidden away for a good reason that's probably a complete? Actually, we never checked that one. Why didn't we check this one? Well, it's going to be a painting. Let's take a penalty if we get a penalty. This painting was found in Mr. Misham's studio. It was either that one or the one with the background. There are two problems with this painting. The first, it wasn't painted by Mr. Misham. The second is that there was another painting in the studio, which looked exactly like this one, except it was only half done. Haha, I'm right. Then we have a letter discussing a payment of $100,000, which suggests a certain business operation. The business of making forgeries. No! That is, like... reminds me of one of those Twister lollies. That is all, Your Honor. Everyone, please, everyone! Everybody. Can we keep this private, please? This is my story, my scoop. Forgery. That's a serious crime. Drew Misham is known as an artist these days, but there are rumors he dabbled in another kind of art until a few years back. Another art? Meaning forgery? Drew Misham was talented, alright. Talented at making precise, detailed fakes. A fact that certain criminal elements were quick to discover. Criminal elements? What? You can't seriously be talking about... Exactly. I'm talking about forging evidence. The rumors started circulating 7 years ago. 7 years ago? So are we to understand that this letter, this payment of $100,000 was for... Exactly. Forged evidence nets tidy profit, end quote. Order! Wise like our victim was living a double life. Haha, this is my chance. So the victim had ties to the criminal world, right? We could have had plenty of enemies we know nothing about. This is my first time hearing of this criminal world. We certainly found no criminal connections when we conducted our investigation. But how do you explain all this money? You have to admit there's a possibility of some illegal activity here. But there is no proof tying this letter to our case. Our case was, and remains, simple from the beginning. Only the defendant could have poisoned that mug that night. And you, of course. Hey! The only thing I poisoned is my pen when I'm writing reviews! Mr. Brushel, your testimony to this point has been quite unreliable. It doesn't speak well of your reporting acumen. What are you talking about? My journalism is rock solid. Journalism's so solid you can stand an elephant on it. End quote. In any case, let's hear a summarized recap of your testimony. If we can ascertain the situation in that studio from the recap, the trial is over. Apollo, what's he talking about? The cross-examination showed Mr. Brushel didn't have reasons or means to poison him. As long as there are no other suspects. And the killer had to be Vera. That's what. Yeah, but that's why, like, just because you could go through a thing, it had to be Machito Bay. But we know that someone else was up in the bloomin' thing. That night. Even that should have disqualified it. This next testimony is our last chance. Mr. Brushel, your testimony, please. Okay, this sounds to be a bit harder, though. If it is our last chance. The only other person in the studio that night was the defendant. It was Vera who poured the coffee. She's admitted as much herself. The only thing that touched Drew's lips during the interview was that mug. And nothing left that studio after he died. Nothing. Clearly, the only one who could have poisoned him was his daughter. Right. I think I know what we're aiming for. And I think we know that he's already said stuff to a certain effect. This would tie the letter to the case. So let's go for it. A nice testimony. Clear, succinct, and without room for doubt. Ah, shucks. You really think so? I believe this clarifies the situation that night. Very well, Mr. Justice. You may begin your final cross-examination. Right. I still have one trump card left to play. And I won't let this trial end until I use it. He's meaning the tiny picture frame. The only other person in the studio that night was the defendant. Okay, we got no gold ring this time. That doesn't prove Vera poisoned it. How many times have we heard that one hair forehead? The poison reached its victim via that coffee mug. And from where did that coffee come? Not to beat a dead horse again and again, but perhaps you could fill us in. I'm on it! You need a horse beat, I'm your man! It was Vera who poured the coffee. She's admitted as much herself. Oh, didn't do that. But well, actually, this is a statement we kind of know. So maybe we could have just skipped that. And you witnessed her pouring the coffee? Of course I didn't witness it when she came with that tray. The coffee was already poured and steaming. Let's not forget, the defendant admitted to pouring the coffee herself. I heard her statement. I poured, I served, and I killed. What? Haha. That last part was just a little joke. Yeah, Vene Vidi Vici, we get it. I don't think I'm going to get anywhere with this coffee mug. I need to find another weak spot in this case. The only thing that touched Drew's lips during the interview was that mug. Now here's the question. You're sure about that? Well, to be really, really precise, I was busy gobbling mint candies the whole time. One of those candies might have been poisoned. Yet at the time of the autopsy, no fresh fragrance of mint filled the room. And no mint residue was found. It was a long shot anyway. Don't tell me you're still trying to prove this. You think the victim ate, drank, or otherwise ingested something other than coffee? Well, Mr. Justice, if you have some proof. The possibility is there, I can feel it. Just maybe not prove it. Not yet. And possibility isn't going to cut it. Not now. Mr. Misham ingested that poison via a route other than that coffee. Where he said maybe not yet. And then there's an option for not yet. What's that about? It can't be proven. I do believe our little forehead is growing up. Pity. We like the rash youthful forehead best. Another hole in this case that needs plugging before I can prove anything. But first things first, I better uncover a weak spot before I try to strike again. The conversation dialogue is always trying to lead you and prod you into the right direction. Him saying that he couldn't prove it just yet means that there's somewhere else, and this statement underpins that. On with the cross-examination! But how? Where? And nothing left that studio after he died. Nothing! Trying to press. Missing. Not one thing? You sure? Yep, sure as can be. Well, with one exception. Oh, one exception? What? Journalist Spark Brushel does interview. Leaves studio. End quote. You suck. Ah ha ha ha! Come on! It's a joke. Get it? Not funny, I know, but still. Did something leave the studio that night? Why does that sound familiar? Where have I heard something like that before? Now that we've proven our witness is a comedian of sorts, I'd like to turn to our defense attorney before returning to the testimony. Do you have any idea what, if anything, might have left the studio that night? Yes. Oh, God. There's more than one choice as well. I think it's here. Let's take a penalty. I think one thing might very well have left the studio that night, actually. A certain something that has vanished from the crime scene. By which you mean? the yellow envelope, sir. The yellow envelope. And on it, the thing that rested in here. So with that said and done, or with that, all my postulations set out, I leave you for another episode of Apollo Justice. Ace Attorney, join me next time for more, as we delve deeper into this case and hope to save the trial in what's the last chance already. Bye-bye.